Hi everybody, I'm going to start with greeting you. Mera naam Sam, and I'm a designer at Godrej GCPL Design Lab. So what you'll find out about me is that I'm sentimental and I love a bit of history. So hopefully I can share my dream with you, which is something I feel is not important only for me, but in the bigger picture in my country. So watch this space. But before I actually even click the first slide, I would like to invite you on a journey with me across time on a little bit of a discovery to a beautiful country and a wonderful land far away. Let's set the scene for you. All right, so we've got some scene setting. Imagine for me, if you can, having a rich, vibrant family history, a lot happening, anything that you can imagine, getting lost, faded in memory. If every single person in this picture was one generation of a family line, dating as far back as you can imagine, all of that gone, lost. How incredible would that story be? The challenge here, unfortunately for me, this slide is a bit of a downer. Okay. In South Africa, our history is not as fortunate as you guys. You guys have an amazing, incredible history of Sanskrit. You guys have documented things from as far back as I can, understand. And I've found that comparably in South Africa, nothing is written. So we didn't have a written language. Everything is oral. Everything is spoken. All the stories that were shared, they rely on memory and repetition. So unfortunately, we also had an added hurdle of a system of government that didn't really care about our history. And for them, they wanted to strip a little bit of the identity and culture to kind of help towards subservience. So they didn't really care about keeping track of any of our stories. As most of you know, history is often told from one side. As a result, many of us have lost our valuable asset, which is our identity. So what is my dream? I'd like to document and trace my family history and tell a little bit of our story from our perspective. Hopefully I can encourage other people as well and we'll get a bigger picture to happen. Okay, how I'm going to achieve this dream. So my 5 amazing steps, I'm going to try and break down this very big thing into bite-sized pieces. First thing, plot my family tree. I tried this. I tried to plot my immediate family, and I realized in African tradition, you don't always refer to someone by their first name. In fact, you hardly ever refer to anyone by their first name. So my grand sister, and her cousins, everyone is Gogo. Gogo means gran. So my grand's sister is Gok Aunt and her name, right? So as a kid, you're talking about Gok Antoshe and Gogo Mati and whatnot. I thought those were their actual names. I thought Gok Antoshe was her actual birth certificate name. It's not actually her name. Toshe was her name. Took me a while to figure this out. So that's important. Second for me, I'd like to do a formal genealogy report. So once I collect all my data, I'd like to get a DNA test and see how far back this goes. So for those of you that know anything about African culture, the people that I'm from, I am a cross between Zulu and Shangaan, and they are from a tribe called Bantu. And they were centered in a certain part of Africa, and they traveled around and traveled down. So it would be really great to tie it to one specific origin. Who knows? Maybe it was Adam and Eve. Okay, the next part I'd like to do is I'd like to document everything. As a graphic designer, it would be amazing to start putting this all together in a tangible document, like a lovely book. Create visual records, taking photos, collecting old ones, and making new ones. So we realized in our family that although we spend a lot of time together in this day and age of Instagram and Snapchat, we're not actually taking photos together to document. Everything is like a quick snap and online. So we needed to document. Last bit is happy trails. I'm hoping I can travel to some of these homesteads and trace some of the history and get a good tangible, feel of where my parents and their parents were raised. How I came to this idea. One of the instances was this photo. This is about 40% of my mom's side of the family. We got together one Christmas, and we realized that we don't actually have any record of all of us together. Now, while we all know each other and we remember our stories and our names, and it's really lovely, our family is really close. One is one side of my family. It's not even my dad's side of my family. A lot of people are missing. But if you'll notice, this photo ranges from age groups of 80. There's aunts, grandmothers, aunts, cousins, like second nephews, twice removed, all the way down to 0, which is this little girl, who, what do we tell her when she grows up? What happens when she becomes a grandmother? What do we have for her? So while all of this is good, that was a big aha moment for me. My second aha moment was in discovering of this photo. Now, that man in the middle that's been highlighted is what is known as a struggle hero. So during the oppressive government, he was one of the active people who actually worked in the resistance. It was underground, everything was clandestine. It's quite historical because they would go for all these secret meetings and figure out how to overthrow the government. That's not the story here. Story here is that this is actually a very rare photo where he's been pictured smiling. If you actually Google him, you will never see a photo of him smiling. He's always serious. Now, unfortunately, he disappeared under mysterious circumstances, and this is one of the few photos that is actually 50 years old. Unfortunately, it was damaged with water, and it's torn. But as a graphic designer, something stirred inside of me. I had to do something about this. It was unacceptable. So I tried to the best of my ability to reconstruct this photo. Over there, you'll see my aunt, her sister, and my mom, who celebrate a birthday together. And in the center is a real-life historical figure. And I didn't want any of this to be lost. So that was the second kind of catalyst for me, the restoration. Seems like a giant metaphor for my life. So I started following this in similar crumbs. What else could I find about my family? What other evidence was there out there? I Googled some things. So where I grew up, that little red spot in the middle of nowhere, it's actually slap bang geographically between where the British and the Dutch fought over land, where the Zulus fought very valiantly at Isandlwana against the British. And somewhere in the middle there, we were, and who knows how long we were always there. Who knows what part we played in that history. Second part of it, there is a little school, S.J. Baloyi. S.J. stands for Samuel Jonas Baloyi. Now this is my grandfather. It's who I'm named after. Samuel, me, Sam. So he actually built schools and shopping centers for the community because the separate government were like, okay, we'll build, but we won't build for you. You guys do your own thing. As a result, that means we would not have any education and not have any way to really shop or buy things. So we would be at their mercy. Third photo is, I just Googled it. Apparently there's a street that has my surname attached to it. Who knew? So what other things am I not aware of for my family? Like this little article that was written on my mother. I was able to trace some more clues. I found out that her grandfather was a minister and that her father was a doctor. So the first doctor in KZN, and he qualified overseas. What's nice for me is that this narrows it down. Very few people have these claims, so it makes it easier for me to trace. But who knows, other families might also have really incredible stories like this. So like I say, I highlighted where I begin in the story, and I started plotting out who else can be involved. Now, if you take a look at the top left, there is a name there, Emily Langer. Now, this is my aunt, actually, and her husband. I will play for you an example of something called Istagazelo with the clan lines. I'll explain that now. Our stories are all rooted in oral tradition, like I mentioned. So people would gather around the fire, and they would tell stories of a Zulu beer. And often, there would be something called a praise poet, and he would come and kind of hype the crowd up, get them amped and going. And this whole practice was basically Ubuntu, being communal, being together. Ubuntu, ngumuntu ngabantu, meaning I am, therefore we are. As in, I don't exist outside of the communal body. So ideally, because nothing was documented, we don't have a written history. We relied very heavily on these praise poets and what they say. What I figured from these praise poets is that we could find little clues from what they were saying.
Sothole mathe waqaba ikomiti mathubandlela mazumleza isidumo wena okhokha lolusho dalo kanisungele sodumase ubula mdlaka ndindi Salomo.
So usually, this would be followed by lots of great sound and applause and ululation. So what they've just done was list somebody's family trail. My family list, again, from my mother's side, Gumete. I won't read that whole thing. I'll probably bite off my tongue. But what you need to look at is, at the bottom in red, there's Gamalandela, who was a chief, as well as Mazalankosi. That means these are the birthers of chiefs. So I can get a clue from there. These guys were somehow tied to the royal family. My father's side, he's Baloyi. Now he's Shangan. I cannot even read that, and I would probably hurt us all if I tried. My dad's mother, hers is important. If you can see by the length of it, actually, that she was obviously from a very high family. I got to talking with my grandparents. Turns out she was from the third royal family on the side. Now, if you look, second line, Ndabezitha, Mazalankosi, again, birther of chiefs, right at the bottom. This gives us context. There, Shandi Uyinkosi eyabona nguShaka. That means this was a chief that was around during King Shaka's days. That means that I now have context, I have cultural perspective, and again at the bottom it says these people were royal and they were birthers of royal. That means there was a family line again. Now, I'm not going to announce that I'm from a Wakanda family tree or anything, but the good news for me here is that I now know that because of this royal line, if anybody's story was told, it was the king. So very quickly, I'll get to the boring stuff now, because all the exciting stuff is over, and I'm pretty sure my time is up. I realize that I need help. I can't do this alone. As the African proverb says, it takes a village. So I've now enlisted my family. They're all in a Facebook group. They're going to do their own individual family lines. We're going to get some photos from them. So all this evidence I'm going to collect, dates, names, birth certificates, everything. All of this information we're going to hand over to researchers within a specific timeline. I'll show you that soon, so that I can actually start talking to the professionals. They can validate my information, and they can help me open doors that maybe I can't open. So first one is a one-on-one consultation, about $100. I figured about 10 hours should be fine. Professional family tree, membership on Ancestry.com, potentially a DNA analysis kit, because that should be a lot of fun. And then travel and sundry to all the different places to see everything, with a total cost of about 2,210 USD. Now let that fall away. What I can do right now, my planned timelines. I plan over the next year to break it up into the 4 phases. First, get my family involved. Break this thing up. How do you eat an elephant? Bit by bit. So over the next 2 months, at least in the beginning, the first phase, I can do the DNA analysis. I can get my family involved, spread their network a bit wider, and get them excited as well about building their family tree. Travel, as I mentioned, and consultation fees. I'm going to end with a bit of a quote from my dad. When the time for an idea has arrived, nothing can stop it. In closing, last thing, so close.
I don't know what that dream is that you have. I don't care how disappointing it might have been as you've been working toward that dream. That dream that you're holding in your mind, that it's possible. That some of you already know. You can live your dream.
That's it. Thank you.